all board members could make it back to their respective desks, chairs, or otherwise, and start turning on your cameras so we can begin the meeting in a couple of minutes, that'd be great. Thanks.
Chair Weigel, I did want to let you know that we have not hit a quorum yet, so we will need just a few more moments.
That's fine. Thanks so much. I'll actually need a few more moments because my small children just arrived home and I need to help deal with them for about 5 minutes.
Hi, Board Member Wicks, if you could do a video and audio chat check for me.
Can you hear me?
I can hear and see you. Thank you so much.
Well, can't see me. I'll stop both.
Recording secretary, it looks like we do have a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes, we do have a quorum now.
Well, then let's get rolling. I only know of one board member that wasn't going to be here tonight. So
I have two that will not be in attendance this evening.
yeah, I heard Vice Chair Hedgepeth wasn't going to be here. Who was the other board member?
Board member Birch is unable to attend this evening as well.
Okay. So
And if
either
you can
Adam
give
and-
us just 2 seconds, board member
Sure.
Sharon just logged on, so I'll
And we'll-
promote him.
then let him get hooked up. Sounds good.
Hello, sorry to be a couple minutes late.
Unacceptable, Adam. You're out. I'm just kidding. You're gone. Kidding. All right, so we have a quorum, and it is after 4:30. So that being said, it is 4:34, and I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Santa Rosa Design Review Board to order. And I will remind everybody why we're here in a virtual setting again. Pursuant to Government Code Section 45953E and the recommendation of the Health Officer of the County of Sonoma, Design Review Board members will be participating in this meeting via Zoom webinar. Members of the public can participate in the meeting virtually by going to www.zoom.us/join and entering the meeting ID 812-5014-4897, or by calling in toll-free 1-877-853-5257 and entering the meeting ID that I just read. Public accessing the meeting through the Zoom link can also provide public comment on the agenda items at the times they're discussed. Additional information related to the meeting can be found at https://srcity.org/design review board. And the meeting is also live streamed on the city's website and also Comcast channel 28 and also the city's YouTube channel. So that being said, recording secretary, may I have a roll call?
Yes, thank you. Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of board member Birch and Vice Chair Hedgepeth.
Excellent. So we don't have any study session items tonight. And number 3, approval of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes? Any comments on the minutes? Changes, adjustments? So that being said, seeing no changes or adjustments, I'd like to put the minutes into the record, the October 7th, 2021 minutes into the record. Item number 4 is public comment. This is reserved for public comment on items not on the agenda for this evening, but that are germane to the board's purview. So if anyone in the audience this evening would like to comment, make a public comment, we will now open public comment. And remember, this is on items not on the agenda. So please, in Zoom, raise your hand, and the recording secretary and I will be looking to see if anybody would like to make public comment this evening.
I am seeing no hands at this time.
And same with me. So I will close public comment at this time. Item 5, board business. This is where we will read the statement of purpose for the Design Review Board from the City of Santa Rosa Zoning Code, Chapter 20, 52.030F, Project Review. The review authority shall consider the location, design, site plan configuration, and the overall effect of the proposed project upon surrounding properties and the city in general. Review shall be conducted by comparing the proposed project to the general plan, any applicable specific plan, applicable zoning code standards and requirements, consistency of the project within the city's design guidelines, architectural criteria for special areas, and the applicable city requirements, e.g. city policy statements and development plans. So that being done, we are now on to board member reports. Are there any board member reports from board members present this evening, this afternoon? Seeing none, we will go, there are no items of other. So we'll go to item 6, which is department reports. and we'll turn this over to our staff liaison, Amy Nicholson.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Weigel and members of the board. Just a brief department report. I believe I mentioned at a previous meeting that the Stony Point Flats design review was appealed, so that will be heard by the council on November 16th. We also will be having a joint Planning Commission City Council meeting including a study session on the housing element that is currently underway. And then just a reminder that our regular meeting scheduled for November 18th will be canceled. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. We'll move on to item number 7, statements of abstention. I don't think anybody has any on this schedule item for tonight, but just to double check, any statements of abstention this evening? Okay. There are no items in consent items, item number 8. So we will move on to item number 9, which is our scheduled items, and we'll go to item 9.1, Highway 101 bicycle pedestrian overcrossing over Highway 101 connecting Edwards and Elliott Avenues. And it's to construct a Class 1 ADA accessible and mode separated bicycle and pedestrian bridge over Highway 101. And I will turn it over to Grant Bailey, the supervising engineer with the City of Santa Rosa, and also supervising a senior planner, Amy Nicholson. And then just one more brief thing. I don't know if everybody remembers, but we saw a concept of this, I want to say 2 years ago, if you're remembering. So I think Henry, Adam, and I have all seen this, but Board Member McHugh and Wolski have not. So just wanted to put that into some context. So with that, we'll turn it over to Grant and Amy.
Amy, do you want to start us off, and then we can go into the presentation? Great,
thank you. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. So as was mentioned, this item is a concept design review for the Highway 101 bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing. As Chair Weigel mentioned, this item was seen by this board in April of 2019. And so during that time, there were 2 alignments proposed and also 3 different types of bridge structures. And the board provided its feedback during that meeting. The board also requested or asked that this item come back to the board as it developed further. And so we're happy to have this item back before you this evening. Just as it relates to process, I wanted to explain that city projects undergo a different type of review. So the city code states that city projects receive concept design review only. So there is not a formal design review action required for this project. So with that, I will hand it over to Grant and the consultant for the remainder. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. I think we're going to need to transfer permissions to Stephen Grover so he can present the slides. So bear with us one moment. All right, Stephen, it looks like you have control. Are we good to begin?
Yep.
Great, thank you. All right, good afternoon, Chair Weigel and members of the board. As Amy mentioned, I'm Grant Bailey, supervising engineer with the city's Transportation and Public Works Department and project manager for the Highway 101 bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing project. With me today are Natalina Bernardi, our consultant project manager with BKF Engineers, and Stephen Grover, the project architect with Stephen Grover and Associates. This afternoon, we are here to present the proposed final design for the overcrossing landings at Elliott and Edwards Avenue, as well as the overcrossing principal span, as well as the proposed design for the overcrossing principal span structure. Additionally, we'd also like to get to receive input from the board on potential public art installations on the overcrossing. Next slide, please. The Highway 101 bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing project proposes to construct a new bike and pedestrian bridge that will cross US Highway 101, connect East and West Santa Rosa, and increase access to academic, residential, commercial, and recreational areas, as well as transit hubs. During the environmental phase of this project, 2 build alternatives were considered. Alternative 1 was the Edwards Avenue and Elliott Avenue alignment, and Alternative 2 was the Range Avenue and Bear Cub Way alignment. In March 2021, the project development team, in conjunction with Caltrans as the lead environmental agency, certified the project environmental document and approved the Edwards-Elliott alignment build alternative as shown in the slide here. Next slide, please. All right, so now I'd like to talk about a few project milestones we've completed to date. So going back to 2007, we initiated a feasibility study, and the feasibility study assessed the need for the feasibility of constructing a bicycle and pedestrian bridge over Highway 101 near the Santa Rosa Junior College in Santa Rosa. Ultimately, the study found there is a need to improve bike and pedestrian access across Highway 101 adjacent to SRJC, and that a freeway overpass structure would substantially address this need. Following the close of the feasibility study phase, we moved into the project initiation document phase. And during this phase, a document was developed and approved by Caltrans that identified this project to be programmed for funding and construction on the state highway system. We completed that phase of the project in October of 2016. And with that, we moved into the project approval and environmental document phase, or PAED phase. And through this phase, the city and Caltrans and our consultants worked with the public to do a robust analysis of environmental impacts that could be incurred as a result of this project, as well as assessing the different alternatives that were discussed earlier. In March of 2021, the environmental phase the environmental document was certified with an initial study mitigated negative declaration. So that brought us into the next phase, which was design. Before I talk about design, I'll also note in June of this year, the project received $12 million of construction funding through the Active Transportation Program, which was awarded by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which is a very big milestone for this project, considering that that funding source funds over half of the expected construction cost. So that was very big for us. And then in the same month of June of this year, we also executed a professional services agreement with BKF engineers to carry out the design of this project. And next slide, please. So our planned next steps following this meeting in December, actually on December 8th, we plan to have a public community meeting to report out on direction received from the DRB, direction and input received from the DRB. And then following that meeting, we will dive into the standard design delivery in conjunction with Caltrans, and which we expect to take about 18 months, which takes us to July 2023, when we expect project design to be completed, and we'll be ready to bid this project for construction. In October of 2023, we expect to begin construction that should last approximately 2 years to build this, the overcrossing, which takes us to fall of 2025, when we hope to have the project complete and ready for use. I'd now like to introduce Stephen Grover of Stephen Grover and Associates, who's been the architect on the 101 Bike and Pedestrian Overcrossing project since its inception in 2007. Stephen will provide a detailed discussion of the project's design considerations. Stephen?
Thank you, Grant. We are pleased to provide the board with an update about the design of Santa Rosa's bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing project. Today, we are seeking the board's feedback and recommendations on the proposed design, specifically integration with the Elliott and Edwards Avenue streetscapes and the main span structure. As Grant mentioned, this project proposes to construct a bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing of Highway 101. The crossing will be ADA compliant and have a width of 14.5 feet between railings. It will be located here, connecting Edwards Avenue on the west and Elliott Avenue on the east. Note that this aerial photo was taken in 2018, and since that time, Santa Rosa Junior College's buildings in the lower right of this image have been demolished. The city has designated Highway 101, the Redwood Highway, as a scenic highway. The visual character along northbound US 101 is open, flat, and expansive, with a view of the Shiloh Hills. In the southbound direction, the view is equally open and airy, with trees and greenery flanking both sides of the highway. At the overcrossing's west touchdown, Edwards Avenue has a quiet, mixed residential character, with some commercial buildings near Cleveland Avenue and single-family and multifamily homes west towards Range Avenue. Key design considerations along Edwards are: 1, compatibility with the existing streetscape character, and 2, maintaining visual and physical access to and from the commercial buildings near Cleveland. On the east side of the highway, Elliott Avenue has a pleasant tree-lined character, with a few single-family homes on the north side and junior college buildings on the south. Design considerations along Elliott include: 1, ensuring that cyclist and pedestrian circulation integrates safely with the circulation within and around the SRJC campus, and 2, minimizing impacts on the heritage trees along the street, such as this large blue oak on the right. Thus, for both approaches, a key design goal for this project is compatibility with the mixed residential character. In other words, we're trying to avoid bringing the materiality and visual character of the freeway into these neighborhoods. Now, just a few words about geometric constraints. On the west side, the approach is constrained by its touchdown location and by a vertical clearance requirement at the entrance driveway to Dick's Sporting Goods. To make the west approach work in compliance with ADA, we need 9 ramps at 8.25% slope. On the east side, the vertical clearance at the east edge of the highway controls, but eastward from there, we have a long, gentle slope of less than 5%. One safety concern we have heard about in past public meetings is how to avoid conflicts between cyclists and pedestrians on the structure. The solution shown here in this view along the west approach is a 2-way bike path and a separate walking path. This solution was initially presented in the 2010 feasibility study. Here's the same view at night. To achieve glare-free lighting, we are proposing LED fixtures mounted below eye level, integrated into the railings, and angled to light only the bridge deck. In cross-section, the proposed walking path will be slightly raised, just 1.5 inches higher than the bike path, with an angled mountable curb to separate it from the bike path. This type of separation has been used in other Bay Area bike ped projects, such as this one I designed shown on the right at the Homer Avenue underpass in Palo Alto. This type of curb is common in other parts of the world where cycling is used as a primary mode of transportation. Concerns have been expressed in the past by the DRB and others about safety at the west touchdown adjacent to the Dick's loading dock driveway. Here is the design from 2016, which was presented in our previous meeting with the DRB, with a mixing area at the bottom of the ramp. This design allowed for straight ahead travel as well as entering the drive aisle of the parking lot, as shown by the red arrows. We have refined this design to restrict travel, eliminating direct access to the parking lot and the driveway. We have also studied travel mode interactions in this mixing area and added a few other safety features. Here is a view of that same area at night. An important project goal is to achieve light levels adequately bright for safety and security, yet pleasant, comfortable, and context compatible. In other words, not harshly overlit like a gas station. Here's that same area as seen from ground level. Along Edwards Avenue, we are proposing to treat the walls supporting the lower portion of the approach to make them compatible with the context. We are proposing a battered, textured concrete wall. We are also considering vines that require climbing structures, so the extent of their growth is self-limiting and low maintenance. This treatment would also minimize large flat surfaces that could attract graffiti. Here is a view of the same area at night. Now turning 180 degrees to look eastward along Edwards, we see how the overcrossing passes over the sidewalk. There's an opportunity here to increase the width of the landscaped buffer between the sidewalk and street. Where the approaches are aerial structures, we are proposing soffit lighting rather than standalone fixtures. And here again is the same area, but as seen from the second floor of the commercial building across the street. Now on the east side of the freeway, the project will connect to Elliott Avenue near the new SRJC student housing. Some at the SRJC have noted increasing interest in walking and biking on campus and asked us to study how to avoid conflicts where multiple paths converge. The SRJC is still working out exactly how the land in this area will be used, so the design you see here will be further refined as we continue to work with the SRJC. Here is a view of the east touchdown area from street level, where we were able to save many existing trees. We have confirmed with the SRJC that no vehicles will need to use this entrance, so we will incorporate mechanisms to prevent vehicles from entering this east touchdown area. Shifting now to the topic of landscaping, the proposed design along Edwards Avenue creates conditions suitable for a variety of different types of plants, those that do well in sun, those that do well in shade, and those that do well in bioretention areas. Here's a preview of our planting concept, mostly using grasses and some large succulents. We are proposing rocks and plants like the ones shown here that are drought tolerant, landscaping that is nice to look at, but not as nice to touch, and thus can serve as a deterrent to repose or encampment. Here are some of the other plants, colors, and textures that we are proposing. With regard to the main span structure, in addition to geometric considerations, there were several factors that informed the design team's recommendation of a cable-stayed bridge type as being the most appropriate structure type for this project. These considerations include visibility of and for users, constructability, minimizing obstruction of the freeway driver's view, and architectural character. In April of 2019, we presented this project to the DRB. At that meeting, we showed you a variety of truss, arch, and sculptural bridge examples. The DRB at that time concurred with our cable-stayed bridge type recommendation and expressed a preference for a unique, light, and airy bridge design, one that would make a modern statement for the city and provide a sense of arrival. To quote Chair Weigel from the 2019 meeting, the bridge should make a statement without signage or artwork because the bridge itself is the artwork. This direction was consistent with public feedback received for the project since 2009. For example, during the project feasibility study, the community input favored a, quote, signature landmark for Santa Rosa that entices people to use it rather than a visually heavier standard overpass structure. Accordingly, we have been working toward a unique and modern design with clean, simple lines, one that is visually light and open, and one that is easily constructible at this location. Some board members might recall that during the conceptual design phase, we were considering a symmetrical cable-stayed bridge structure type with two towers in a V shape. When we presented that pylon and cable configuration, the DRB directed the design team to, quote, push the design envelope, treat the bridge as artwork, be bold, and to consider a single pylon rather than the rabbit ears V shape. During the current detailed design phase, we have had the benefit of LiDAR data for the existing trees along Elliott Avenue. We have found that the arrangement of the backstay cables in a near vertical plane would require cutting nearly half of the canopy off of this heritage oak. According to the project's arborist, this blue oak is especially large and is healthy and has a good form. Here's that same tree in section. The green box represents the tree trimming that would be needed if the backstays connect to the deck, such as with the two pylon configuration or with a single centered pylon configuration. The blue box represents trimming needed if we use a single offset pylon so that the backstays do not need to attach to the deck. We studied many pylon and cable configurations, considering simplicity, tree impacts, the structural system, and constructability. For example, shown here is a symmetrically placed single pylon with a deck form that bulges around the interruption. We found that offsetting the pylon offers a more elegant solution. It keeps the deck design simpler, and it relates to the asymmetry of the traveled way. This is our recommended pylon configuration. Here is the proposed pylon and deck configuration from a westbound user's view. And here from an eastbound user's view. Note that for greater visual transparency and a more open user experience, we are proposing cable mesh instead of standard chain link fencing for the portions of the bridge over the freeway. Here's what cable mesh looks like. Here's what the proposed design looks like from the corner of Elliott and Armory. Note how the backstays are anchored to the ground rather than to the deck. And a view looking up at the pylon. This is a southbound freeway driver's view at sunrise. We believe this bridge will be a landmark that is unique to Santa Rosa, a placemaker that preserves the views of the hills and of the skyline, and of the surrounding buildings. As a recap, here's a video that will just take you through the various parts of the project. It runs 2.5 minutes. So to conclude, we request that the board comment on and confirm the offset single pylon cable stayed bridge design shown tonight, as well as the designs shown for the bridge approaches and landings. Also, since 2019, we have received public comment regarding public art. So we are requesting today that the board provide additional direction regarding whether public art should be incorporated, and if so, how. We look forward to your discussion and will be happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Stephen. That concludes our presentation this evening.
Cool. Thank you, applicant team and Grant. So I think what we'll do, so this is a concept item, so we don't have to open for public hearing or whatever, but what our board typically does is we do allow public comment for the members of the public that are attending. So before we go into questions and comments from the board, I think we'll do public comments. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay. So if you are attending the meeting and you wish to speak on this topic, you'll get 3 minutes. And so the recording secretary, Michelle, will put up on the screen here a little timer. And so you'll get acknowledged kind of individually, and Michelle will state your name. Then we'll give you a couple seconds to make sure that we can hear you. And then we'll go into your public comment. And so we'll typically, the board will take notes. I tend to take notes of public comment. The rest of the board does as well, as does staff. And then we'll bring it back to the board, and the board will ask questions of the applicant and staff about the project. And typically, if there's a public comment that we keep hearing kind of the same thing over and over again, we'll likely ask that of staff and or the applicant, and then public comment may also key off a question for us as well. So with that, without further ado, we'll go to public comment now. And Michelle, it looks like Steve Soldis is the first one, at least on my screen. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Steve, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please start by stating your name for the record.
Yes, thank you for taking my comment. My name is Steve Soldis. I live my office is 1955 Cleveland. I'm on the corner of Cleveland and Edwards. And as been mentioned numerous times in comments, but I just want to get more comfort feeling. Bridges attract homeless. We look at every underpass and every bridge around town. It's full of encampments. I know that you're doing your best to prevent this by putting rocks and type of foliage, but over time that foliage goes away, or the landscape can wear out or go away. But more importantly is underneath the bridge, I didn't realize there was going to be a sidewalk. What is the city going to do to prevent that from becoming a homeless encampment, because it's underneath and it will protect them from the weather? The second question I have is Edwards going to get redesigned? It's going to be a beautiful bridge. It's going to have a nice landing, but the rest of Edwards, that street kind of looks unincorporated. I think that I've talked with Grant in the past, and there's been discussion about maybe doing something to make the street look more appealing, but I'm just curious, because the one big problem we have right now is parking. And as soon as Dick's Sporting Goods kicks everybody out of the parking spaces over there, we're going to have a real crisis for parking on our hands. Is there a way that we can incorporate more parking along Edwards down farther after the landing, maybe a perpendicular type of parking that can allow more of the cars to park there on that street? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And then it looks like, Michelle, you got the next one there?
I do. David, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute yourself. And then if you could please start by stating your name for the record when the timer restarts. Thank you.
Okay. I'm waiting for okay. My name is David Harris, and I have commented before to Design Review, and I have been following this bridge project since 2004. My daughter was a senior in high school. I've been watching this since before we got her from China. But this overcrossing was first illustrated in Public Works as an option in the 101 widening. And then in 2009 and 10, the Northwest Santa Rosa Smart Design Competition, which was sponsored by Redwood Empire AIA and the Leadership Institute, there was a design competition, and an entry by Paul Harris raised the vision of a steel truss overcrossing that also served the role of the placemaker, a defining element for its specific location. And the judge panelists from the national team that came, Georgia Tech professor Ellen Dunham Jones, said, "I'm always pleased to see infrastructure used for public placemaking." The Eiffel Tower is a placemaker that we all know, but it's not infrastructure. The Golden Gate Bridge is both infrastructure and placemaker. But things have changed a lot since 2004 when I started thinking about this, and realizing the urgent need to make personal choices that contribute to protecting the future raises a question of how a placemaker might also communicate and motivate prudent personal choices. It goes beyond just having the placemaker be a piece of art, like is the case with Golden Gate Bridge. Over 101, what might draw attention of not only the adult drivers, but also the kids in the back seat? That's really what is driving my interest in the type of placemakers that this could be. It needs to be highly visible, have catchy illustrations, The goal is to inform people about alternative transportation that exists in that very place. And right now, you can't tell that there's a smart station just a short distance away. Nobody notices that, but to motivate people that biking and walking in North Santa Rosa can get you many places. You might call it propaganda, not art, but I suggest that this art needs to carry a message, not simply be pleasing to look at. And steel truss bridges are a good background for that. But I want to draw attention to the fact that we are here talking about a expensive project, and that is not a role that's given to design review. We need to really look at the expense difference. We have a one-of-a-kind that is potentially going to have cost overruns, and we need to look at the option of a steel truss because it's off the shelf, readily available, and far more predictable in construction.
Thanks, Mr. Harris. We appreciate your comments. Michelle, next one.
Okay, next we have Frank. Frank, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute yourself, and if you could please start by stating your name for the record.
Yeah, go ahead. Am I ready?
You are ready. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Frank Haig. I'm the treasurer of the Homeowners Association on Edwards Avenue, right across the street from Dick's Sporting Goods. We have a lot of concerns about traffic and parking, and we also have concerns about access to the property on the south side of Edwards Avenue, right across from Dick's Sporting Goods. I wonder if that's going to be impacted and to what degree. What mitigation efforts are going to be made in that respect? My last question regarding this is the design, and I think that's what the design review board is all about, is why do you need to have that pylon with all those wires running back and forth like that? Is it because of some artistic statement? I'm not sure. Maybe you could eliminate that and save some money, because obviously there's going to be some cost overrides on this project. So those are the concerns we have, particularly with the traffic and the parking on Edwards Avenue and the impact it will have on the south side of Edwards Avenue, right across from Dick's Sporting Goods. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haig. Michelle, let's go to the next one.
Great. We have Dylan. Dylan, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please state your full name for the record.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Dylan Prindle. I live in the Ridgeway neighborhood, so just on the other side of the freeway there. So I'm highly in favor of this project. The landing on the Edwards side, I see there's a curb cut there for pedestrians, and next to it is the entrance for the Dick's parking lot. And there was a division between those two curb cuts. And I think for bikes getting on and off the bridge, a wider curb cut there that connects and conjoins those two would be better. You also mentioned the touchdown on the JC side having no vehicles. So I'd like to see some bollards there. A lot of the times people seem to put up delineators, which are just plastic pylons that get knocked over and don't actually prevent people from entering where they're not supposed to go. And yeah, this project, having the feasibility study done back in 2007, it's just such a long time overdue. As we go forward, we need to have a more green city that's more equitable, more connected, and a better quality of life. And these human scale pedestrian bike projects are the way to do that. We need to stop focusing so much on our auto-centric design and design more for people to get where they need to go and improve their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. We appreciate your comments. Michelle, next one.
Next, we have L. Willard. If you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute yourself, and if you could please start by stating your full name for the record.
My Chair Weigel and the Design Review Board members, I'm Willard Richards. I've followed this project as a supporter since its inception. When completed, it will be an important part of our transportation infrastructure. Now, more than ever, it is important that people walk, bicycle, and take public transit instead of driving. I strongly favor the Edwards-Elliott alignment and the cable stay design and recommend that the Design Review Board approve them. I prefer to see this bridge design rather than a truss design, and I think that many community members and visitors would have the same preference. The design of the landings has been improved, and I recommend that you improve them. In addition, I'm concerned that changing the design at this time would delay the project and do not expect that a design change would decrease the total project cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Richards. We appreciate that. Henry, before we move on to the next one, Henry, you had your hand up. Was that an accident there? Okay, accident. Okay, cool. So Michelle, let's move on to the next public comment there, please. And then, but before we do that, I noticed Frank Haig has his hand raised again. So typically we don't grant folks a second chance to speak in our public comments. However, if there is another person watching with Mr. Haig and they wish to speak, we have allowed that in the past. So I did just want to, I happen to notice that. So Mr. Haig, if there's not another person there with you not wishing to speak, if you could lower your hand in the Zoom application, that would help us immensely. I appreciate you. And so Michelle, let's go to the next one.
Great, we have Julia. Julia, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute yourself, and if you could please state your name for the record.
Hi there, I'm Julia Donahoe. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, go ahead.
Great. I'm an architect, and I was part of the Smart Ideas competition I was the co-chair with Tanya Narath back in 2009, 2010. And we brought experts from all over the country to talk about urban design. And the design by Paul Harris that came about was really about marking the place that you're passing through as something significant, and Santa Rosa as something significant. And he referenced the old Redwood Highway. There's so many things that are happening at this intersection of our world, the Guerneville Road, the gateway to wine country, the J.C. Schultz Museum and Ice Arena, the Sonoma County Center, the County Town Mall, and all those things. And the cable stayed bridge to me feels like a very Swiss engineering, beautiful, efficient example of how to span, but not really referencing something integral to the nature of our community. So I'm not averse to the cable stay or the truss or whatever. I'm just more interested in the expression. What Drew said in the previous meeting was the bridge should be the artwork. And my professor was David Billington, who stressed that the structure and the art should be integral. And what Stephen has designed is a beautiful piece of artwork, but it's not really referential to the speed and pace of Santa Rosa and what all the fruits of what we have to offer here. So I'm just not advocating one truss or cable stayed. I do think cost is important, but I really do think that this should be a signpost really for Santa Rosa, and urge some sort of a public process that will allow something to evolve that might be more collaborative. Like when we did the obelisk down on Santa Rosa Avenue that included bike people and engineering and art all coming together into a monument for our community that did express something about our community. So I really think you should confirm the approaches. He's done a great job there. I'm really excited about the bridge. I'm glad we have the money for it. And I really urge us to think of a placemaker not as something that preserves view, but something that marks the passage, and for people going through Santa Rosa to know that there's things to discover here. It should in some way say biking. It should in some way say Smart Train. It should in some way say Cottingtown Mall. It should in some way say Charles Schultz. And it shouldn't be like images posted on. What Drew said is right. We shouldn't have to stick images on there, but the design should somehow say that these things are happening here and there's something to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia, for your comments. So Michelle, I think it looks like Frank Haig is next. So I'm going to assume that there is another person there. So if you could grant that, and then we'll see. And if not, then we'll have to cut it. Is that okay?
Yes, that works. Frank, you should have a prompt allowing your second person to unmute themselves, and if they could please state their name for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. One other question I had for the design portion
so,
of
Mr. Haig, I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard me, but we grant everybody 3 minutes. And if there's an additional person at your household that would like to speak besides you, that is okay. But you've already gotten your 3 minutes. So we appreciate and we want to hear your question, but unfortunately we have to let everybody have 3 minutes. We can't give you 4 minutes or 5 minutes.
I'm sorry.
Does that make sense?
I would only take 15 seconds because it's a safety concern.
Sure, go ahead quickly.
All right. At the west end, where at the bridge at the west end on Edwards Avenue, where there's a crosswalk. My concern is about the traffic signal that should be there, or some sort of alert to the traffic that people want to cross. I'm concerned about the safety cross.
All right, sure. We'll be sure to ask the design team about that.
Thank you.
I'm sure. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Michelle, let's move on to Elizabeth Ridlington, please.
Elizabeth, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please start by stating your name for the record.
Okay, I'm Elizabeth Ridlington. I am the vice chair of the city's Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board, and I am delighted that this project is moving forward after so many years with so many people working to make this a reality. I think getting a bridge across the 101 is critically important for enticing more people to feel comfortable riding and walking as a mode of transportation around town. Along those lines, I feel very strongly that the offset pylon, as opposed to the steel truss design, is much more appealing. It feels open, it feels airy, it's inviting, whereas the images that I'd seen and some of the slides that were circulated in advance of this meeting made the steel truss design look quite enclosed and unappealing. I have lived in Santa Barbara for a number of years and continued to visit for work. And there I have the experience of crossing an old school bridge that's bike and pedestrian bridge that's quite enclosed. It's unappealing. It feels like something it's practical, but it doesn't invite. Whereas there's a newer crossing there that, though it has cars on it, is actually much more appealing as a cyclist or a pedestrian because it is open and broad and feels like you're elevated up into the sky. It's a pleasure to ride on. And I would like to be able to have that experience here in Santa Rosa. And so for that reason, I really like the proposed design that was presented to us here today. In addition, I would like this bridge to be a bridge for pedestrians and cyclists. It shouldn't be something that is there and designed to deliver a message to people in cars, to tell people about other attractions and features of our community. It needs to be designed as a a way to facilitate carbon-free transportation and to make that very appealing to people who live here, not to people who are driving through or visiting. So I continue to be strongly in support of the pylon style. Then as to the specific design on the landing end, I have said this before, I think at previous meetings, but I would strongly prefer to have a straight, not a wandering sidewalk underneath the landing on the west end. I walk as a mode of transportation. I want to get from point A to point B as quickly as I can. And it's lovely if it's pleasant along the way, but I'd like to be able to walk in a straight line. And I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We appreciate your comments. Michelle, let's move to the next one, please.
Next, we have Galaxy J7V. You should have a prompt allowing you to unmute yourself, and if you could please state your full name for the record.
Hello, my name is Thomas Ells, and I am a member of the Transportation and Land Use Coalition and Friends of SMART, and appreciate the opportunity to speak. I've been involved in SMART for many, many years back with George Ellman and Bill Cordham, and think that, and I believe that both the Transportation Land Use and the Friends of SMART would like to have a reference to the station there. I'm also a civil engineer, an environmental engineer, and it happened to be an anthropologist, if that means anything in the way of art and evaluation. And the pylon bridge, the new bridge, is, as the previous commenter mentioned, open and inviting. And my experience, we have several pedestrian bridges, and we have a choice kind of between the utilitarian and the artwork. We have the utilitarian ones. They don't express anything, really. You just go past them, and you hope nobody drops something on you, really. Maybe somebody brings up a political sign or something. But here we have this opportunity, as the competition people believe that it could express something about Santa Rosa there, and it seems to be a good opportunity. I think we have the opportunity, that is, to do both things, is to have that artistic expression and to also have a couple of placemaking statements or ideas, concepts that could be incorporated, but they should be incorporated as art. They shouldn't be incorporated as, a Caltrans sign. In fact, Caltrans itself has just opened itself up to art being placed within the right-of-way. So there's a whole new process, essentially completely separate from this, to allow on Caltrans property, not on this, which would not be Caltrans property, I don't believe, but to allow art. And the point is that art could be there. It could be very beneficial, and it doesn't have to be precluding either visibility. They could be very airy. It could just be outline of whatever it is. Caltrans generally only wants to have one or two elements on any type of sign, so it's not distractive. So that would be a limit. But it's really important. I think it's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your comments. Michelle, let's move to the next one, please.
Alicia, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Alicia Ray, and I wanted to point out, hold on just 1 minute. Will you mute, please? I was getting feedback on this end. What I wanted to say is I've been speaking to some people who've talked to city council members and people in the city council who have said that whichever design is coming out of this design review board process is the design they are going to accept without any further consideration about relative cost of the various types of bridges that we could have in this location. And if that is true, and the design review board sends back, we want a pylon bridge, that means that at this stage of the process, the cost to actually produce this bridge is not going to be revisited by the city council. And the costs relative to a pylon bridge that's being designed by a designer and has, as far as I know, one company has been allowed to bid only on the actual construction of this project, that the relative cost between this one-off architect designed and one company being allowed to bid alone for that bridge is not being compared to anything else that might be cheaper, possibly a truss bridge that could be elegant and open and light and have art added to it and come in several millions of dollars cheaper, is a concern of mine that this process has circumvented. If it's true that the city council will take this proposal by you and not revisit cost issues, then if you put in, we want a pylon bridge, the whole question of how much this bridge is going to cost versus other equally good solutions is going to be null and void. If you submit a neutral recommendation to the city council, they would then be more open to considering cost and understanding whether a pylon bridge is truly what the city needs or maybe something less expensive might be more appropriate. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Alicia. We appreciate your comments. Michelle, the next one on the list, please.
Gina, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Gina Hunsinger, and I live and work in Santa Rosa, and I've done that for decades. I am currently the director of the Charles Schulz Museum, and we have heard from several citizens that they love the idea of placemaking art, and that the Peanuts characters would be something that they would like seen on the overpass. And I just wanted you to know, as a point of reference, that the Schulz family is aware of this. Charles Schulz, it's the only place in the world that you can call the home of Snoopy, because Charles Schulz lived and worked and played here for the last 30 years of his life. So the Schulz family is interested at this point, if that is something that the community wants. And I just wanted you to know that, so you had that in the back of your mind. We think it's fabulous that you're doing this, of course, to encourage pedestrian and biking and other modes of transportation like the SMART train. There's so much to do here. There's so much, and I'm glad the access is coming. You know, you have the Children's Museum of Sonoma County, you've got the ice arena, you've got Coddingtown, you've got the JC. There's just so much for people to do in this area. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. We appreciate your comments. Michelle, let's move on to the next public commenter.
Next, we have Jack. Jack, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please state your name for the record.
Hello, I'm Jack Swearingen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm chair of Friends of Smart, and I've been pursuing this project almost as long as David Harris, not quite. And I consider two major victories already in pocket. The first one is there's a bridge at all. And the second is that it's located at Edwards Elliott instead of Bear Cub Way. The reason I think those are victories is because part of my vision is to get people from JC to and from the SMART station at Guerneville Road. And that's my Friends of Smart angle on this. My personal angle is I'm also a cyclist, and I often cycle west to east across the city. And this will be great as a cyclist, even though I'm not a JC student and I don't live in the JC neighborhood. This is a wonderful and vital link. I appreciate that. There's some victories already in hand. I thank you for part you played in this. This cable stayed design that you have seen and heard about is elegant in its own right, even attractive. It's a showpiece, if you will. But placemaking, as I understand it, is more than that. It's Santa Rosa as a place, not just an overcrossing as a place. And people, I don't think, will come to Santa Rosa to see this overcrossing, elegant as it may be. So I'm looking to try to tell them, the travelers who are on their way through to go to the North Coast, to tell them there are other ways to get here, at least to Santa Rosa. And secondly, once you're here, there are attractions in Santa Rosa that you already heard about from Gina and others. So how can we do that? I don't oppose the Gibblesdale Bridge per se. It's elegant, and yet the cost concerns me a little bit. How can we achieve placemaking and alternate transportation while we're building this elegant bridge? That's a difficult conclusion to come to, but that's my request of you. And one last thing, and that is that the green highway signs on 101 that shows in the video are going to block much of the information that we might put on a bridge. So that's a problem that has to be overcome. That's my point. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jack. We appreciate your comments. Let's move on to the next one, please.
John, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please state your name for the record. John, I do see that you are unmuted, but we are not hearing you. Okay, so it looks like we're still not hearing you. What you can do is call in to the meeting. The information, the phone number and the meeting ID are at the bottom of the public comment slide that is on the screen currently. If you want to call in, you can press *9 and that will raise your hand and we'll be able to take your comment that way.
So Michelle, I'd like to do this. Well, let's move on to the next commenter, and then maybe John is either going to call in or he's going to reinstall Zoom or whatever. We've had that before. So we'll go through the next couple of folks here, and then if Mr. Sutter's not back, we'll maybe launch into our questions, and then if he comes back, we'll drop back and try to take his comment. So it looks like the next one is Elizabeth Ridlington, which we've already heard from, but perhaps there is another member of her household wishing to speak, and so or not. Okay, there we go. Hand went down. So we'll go to the last one here, Michelle. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Jenny, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute, and if you could please start by stating your name for the record.
Sure, thank you. My name is Jenny Bard, and I have lived in Santa Rosa for 35 years, mostly in the JC neighborhood, and I served on the city's first Bike and Ped Advisory Board. And I just want to say it's so exciting to be here as the bridge gets closer to fruition. I think that this is going to be one of the most important infrastructure projects in Santa Rosa's history. Having a safe way to travel east and west for cyclists and pedestrians has never been more needed and urgent. And I think it'll help put Santa Rosa on the map as a bicycle-friendly destination. So it's been great to hear all the other commenters. I agree that the bridge will serve as a placemaker. And I would love to explore how we can showcase our city's world-renowned Schultz-Snoopy connection. I would love to see bicycle and other art, wayfaring signage, and other creative design elements incorporated throughout so that the bridge, the entrances and the exit, and the whole experience of getting to, riding on, walking on, getting off is an experience. It's a discovery for those who use it. and it then becomes a destination, like the wonderful bridge up in Sundial Bridge. Anyway, in addition to being a very important community connector. So I just wanted to also point out that I really appreciated the consideration that Stephen Grover mentioned at the beginning of how the pedestrian and bicycle circulation to and from the bridge will integrate with the SRJC. We know this is really important and glad that that process is going on. I would like to ask what additional bicycle infrastructure will be considered to make bicycling safe and inviting, such as protected bike lanes and lower car speeds on the key corridors that are leading to the bridge for bicyclists. So that's my question. Those are my comments. I really appreciate your consideration of all the comments today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. We appreciate that. And it looks like we have a new hand raised here. So we'll go to that person. But we're if Mr. Sutter still is trying to log in or call in. Oh, hey, show back up. Awesome. So we'll go to the next person and then we'll go to John Sutter last.
James, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute. And if you could please start by stating your name for the record. James, if you would like to unmute and state your name for the record. James, it looks like we cannot hear your audio. If you would like to use the call-in information on the timer slide to call in and give your public comment, or if you would like to update your Zoom and then try again.
Are you talking to James Berger? Hello?
Yes, it seems like we're there. Yeah. James E. Berger.
Yeah. Okay. I've lived here in Santa Rosa since 19.
Mr. Berger, if you could start over, state your name and any other pertinent information for the public record, that'd be great. And then we'll start the clock.
I'm Jim Berger. I'm here to talk about the placemaking for the bridge. I think it's a wonderful bridge. And I've lived in Santa Rosa since 1964, lived in the same house since 1967. Children's dentist, practiced for 30 years. I've been in numerous boards, the Volunteer Center, the Food Bank, YMCA, and been involved with the Schultz Museum, which is an absolute wonderful thing here in town. And the Schultz Museum is making Santa Rosa a worldwide visitor center. And I think that placemaking on that bridge with some things about the Schultz Museum, and it's wonderful because there's only about 3 blocks away from the Schultz Museum, the ice rink, and I think that it would be one of the things that really sort of would make Santa Rosa a wonderful place. So.
That concludes your comments. We appreciate you, Mr. Berger.
Comments I'm for the bridge, and I'm all for the placemaking of maybe some things about the Schultz Museum or the Schultz, just Sparky, Snoopy, things like that. That would be something that people would just going through there. They'd recognize that. The world recognizes those things, and this would be something. World recognition would be wonderful here for Santa Rosa. That's it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Berger. We appreciate your comments. And now, Michelle, let's go back to Mr. Sutter here and see if we have some sound.
Great. John, you should have a prompt allowing you to unmute. If you are a call-in listener, you can press *9.
Hello.
Great. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
All right. The wonders of modern communication when they work. As you said, my name is John Sutter. I live at 618 Victor Drive, about 4 blocks from the Elliott Landing. I'm delighted to see this bridge going forward. I like the design. I think it's memorable, that at least the ones that are shown in your announcement of this meeting. It reminds me of the Bay Bridge, which kind of, you know, we could call it Bay Bridge North, maybe. My office is a mile away on the other side of 101. And unfortunately, I drive every day. And I do drive an electric car, but I'm still cluttering the streets. And because I'm not going to walk underneath 101, it just, it's not a pleasant experience. Once this bridge is built, I will bike or walk probably every day that it's not raining. Can't wait for it to happen. I'll point out that the JC, I came in late, so probably all this has been discussed, but the JC is building a very large dorm complex on the corner of Elliott and Armory. I can't wait to have that bridge there to reduce the car congestion in my neighborhood. And you should be able to go to college without having to own a car. This will help promote that and help lower income students attend college. I think Peanuts reference somehow would be wonderful, very appropriate, and I'm certainly not sure how it could be incorporated, but you know, if we could call it Peanuts Bridge North or some such thing. And I just want to commend everyone that's contributed to moving this project forward. You know, building bridges across existing freeways is not a simple measure, and a lot of brain power has taken place to get us to this point. And let's keep rolling, and I'm perfectly happy with the design as shown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutter. We appreciate your comments, and I'm glad that technology did not fail us at this time. So I don't see any additional hands raised, so we're going to run through our normal order of operations here. And I'm going to ask the recording secretary if we received any voicemails at the city for this project.
We did not receive any voicemails.
Cool. And then did we receive any additional emails between what was included as late correspondence in the packet? Anything beyond that?
We did receive one other email besides the late correspondence that I sent earlier today. I'm not sure if Amy would like to touch on that, or if she would like
if Amy could summarize that email and read it into the record, that would be fantastic.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Let me go ahead and pull it up.
Hi, Amy, just on city procedure, we don't read them verbatim anymore. If you just want to summarize it,
sure.
A brief summary.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that I provided an accurate summary. So this email supports the overcrossing based on our current climate change outcome, and it supports using the Peanuts characters on the bridge as well. And I'm not aware of any additional email that was received besides that one since the late correspondence. Yeah,
it looked like I'm looking at that same email just to make sure it was this, and that you summarized it perfectly, Amy. Thanks so much. Again, seeing no additional hands raised, we will now close public comment. And I'm going to bring it back to the board. And so typically what we do is if there's an item that came up during public comment that I heard a couple of times, I'll summarize those for staff and see if we can maybe get an answer. And then we'll go through questions from the board, and they may bring up something that they heard in public comment or an additional question or comment. So I heard this comment a couple times from members of the public, and I think the design team and so maybe Grant and Stephen Grover can maybe respond to this. So, and I'm going to tie it together. It's kind of two questions in one, maybe. So it seemed like there was some folks didn't quite understand how a cable stay bridge works, why there's all the cables going down to support the deck and running back to the tower, and then the tower obviously being then tied back down to the ground so the things don't fall over. So maybe we could explain that a little bit, and then talk a little bit about cost. So the difference between cost of just kind of bridges in general right now. I know that in my world, so I'm an architect, in my world costs are kind of crazy right now. And they've been going up anywhere from 6 to 15% year over year escalation for the last about 5 years. You say that's about right, Henry? Henry's an architect too. So yeah, we've seen pretty crazy escalation in the construction industry. So I imagine any sort of solution right now is going to be expensive, given that, and probably a grant. Would this project also have to have prevailing wage as part of it? So it
Yes.
would also drive up the cost.
Yes.
So that's sorry, I gave you a bunch of questions.
No problem. Those are all good questions. So I'm actually I could probably explain the function of the cable stay, but I think I'm going to defer that one to Stephen. And then once he explains it, I'll follow up with a discussion of cost. Does that work for you, Stephen?
Sure.
Thanks.
Let me share my screen real quick. So this is the bridge deck along here, and it's held up by these cables. They all tie into the tower or the pylon. And so the pylon is pushing down into the ground like that. Now, because these cables are at an angle, there's a component of force that's pushing back this way too, a big component, and that's resisted by this element right here. And then last but not least, this big pylon, because it's holding up all these cables, we have to prevent it from rotating to the left. So that's what these backstays do. They hold it down by anchoring into the ground.
Perfect. Thanks so much for explaining that, Stephen. I know structural engineering is a lost concept on lots of folks, and especially something that is sculpturally beautiful, but also engineering complex piece of engineering as well, but also kind of simple at the same time in a way. So Grant, could you speak a little bit about cost now?
Yes, of course. So we did expect a question to come up of cost when comparing the cable stay and the truss bridge, just based on the amount of public comment we received leading up to this meeting, and support of the truss bridge type. So that is I guess we're most prepared to speak to the comparison costs of the cable stay versus the truss type. And really, we worked with another bridge supplier. So, based on the public comment we received, we took it very seriously, and we wanted to come and provide good information to the board and the public. And what we came up with was it appears that the truss type bridge is approximately 10% less costly than the cable stay bridge. However, along the life cycle costs of the bridge, there's a significant or of the two bridge types, there's a significantly more steel in the truss type bridge as opposed to the cable stay, and the maintenance of the steel over the life of the bridge would approximately offset that 10% upfront construction cost. So when you consider the overall cost of both structures over the life, they should be approximately the same cost.
So yeah, so that's great, Grant. I appreciate that. So, and for everybody who may not understand this, so the cable stay bridge, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, and Stephen and Grant can correct me, but the deck is made of concrete, a precast concrete element, correct? And then it has a surface on it, and then the cables are made of steel cable, and they run back to I imagine a steel pylon, correct? Am I right so far?
I think it might be a precast pylon. Sorry, Stephen, you go ahead though.
Yeah, the pylon would be steel, and the deck would be steel and concrete hybrid structure.
Steel and concrete hybrid. Okay, cool.
I think the key distinction is the amount of surface area.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so then you've got a steel pylon, and then you've got steel cables, and basically from a maintenance standpoint, as I understand it, you really only need to paint the pylon potentially, right? And maintain the cables, and the cables would likely be made out of stainless steel or something like that, so they wouldn't necessarily need to be painted, correct?
Correct.
And then so then if we go to a bridge, as Stephen has on the screen, that's steel members, right? So those would need to be maintained over the lifetime of the bridge, painted every couple of years, much like the Golden Gate Bridge is painted, all of its steel members, right? As weather attacks the paint chips off, people flake the paint off, you have to paint the paint, you have to maintain those elements. And so if I'm understanding you, Grant, that process over the life cycle of the bridge offsets the initial upfront cost of the cable stay bridge. Is that about correct?
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. See, so I wanted to make it a little bit easier to understand for maybe someone who wasn't an architect or a structural engineer.
Yeah, no, that was a great layman's description. I really appreciate that.
Not a problem. So that being said, those were kind of the big, it seemed like the two big questions that I heard. So I'm going to turn it back over to the board now. And so we're going to run through questions of the applicant team about the design, and then we'll do kind of our design comments after that. So we'll do our questions first and then the design comments. So I would like to start with board member Wolski for her questions.
So I think this is probably a question for staff, maybe Supervising Engineer Bailey. If the design were to change, would this create delays for the project? And that's the extent of my questions right now.
Yes. So it would probably delay the design effort anywhere from 6 months minimum to, a year or more. And what's problematic about that at this point is we have construction funding, as I mentioned, the $12 million that was awarded in June, as well as approximately $6.5 million or almost $7 million more dollars that are funded for the use of or to be allocated to construction in 2023, 2024, or fiscal year 2020. 2023 basically. And if we were to change the design at this point, it's possible or likely even that funding that's been allocated for the construction in 2023 could be jeopardized.
Cool. Thanks, Sheila. Board Member Wicks, questions?
Yes, for Mr. Grover. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. An extreme amount of work. I commend you for all of the videos, graphics, etc. I also thank you very much for listening to us back in April of 2019. And I just want to let you know that was one of my first meetings as a board member. And when I kind of called it as I saw it at the time, and I called them TV rabbit ears. And since then I've learned to temper my comments just a little bit and try to put them in more constructive manner. But I love the single stay that you've come up with and brought before us. My question is, could you pull up the graphic that you were drawing on just a minute ago?
Sure.
So this truly shows the art form that you've designed and commend you for. And my question is, when you add and overlay the required guardrail onto it, that's a necessity, keep people from falling off the bridge. The secondary one, as it goes over the highway, I imagine that's a Caltrans requirement where the guard railing goes from, say, 42 inches high above the walking deck to how high does it go?
So there are two types of approved, quote, missile-proof fencing configurations. One is 8 feet high with it curving over your head, or 10 feet high if it's flat. And we're recommending the latter solution with as visually open material as possible.
Right, and I noticed you've got a very inventive way of attaching that cable mesh to the cable supports of the bridge, where there's some sort of a turnbuckle that helps support the cable for the top of that 10-foot cable mesh. Am I reading your drawings correctly?
Yes, a dual cable clamp that clamps from the hanger cables to the top of the cable mesh, so that we essentially eliminate as much as possible clutter.
So, and that extent of that 10-foot tall, what did you call it? A missile?
Caltrans calls it missile-proof fencing, so people can't throw missiles down onto the freeway.
I learned something new tonight. Okay. So that missile-proof fencing, that starts at each edge of 101? Is that
correct?
So, is a certain distance beyond a little bit, or is it? I'm sure there's some guidelines for it. But here's my question. I'm warming up to the question. So that 10 feet and that top cable, is there a way, or did you look at potentially taking that 10 feet and bringing it more, following this elegant design, bringing it down to 0 to the 42-inch high cable? And I know it would have to go beyond the 101 extents, but and then I was thinking maybe even it could be asymmetrical on the Edwards side, where it would mimic the pylon. But as it went to the Edwards, angled on the Elliott side, and then I was just wondering if you thought about it. I don't want to mess with your design, but I'm just wondering if it was ever discussed, or if there's a possibility of adding one last little bit of elegance to it by not having it just abruptly stop at both ends and have it gracefully terminate down to the 42-inch guardrail height, for example.
Thank you. Yes, we're very interested in finding an elegant and simple and graceful way of terminating the higher fencing at each side of the freeway. We've looked at a variety of options and have not yet found something that really clicks for us, to be perfectly frank.
Okay. Yeah, that's my only question.
Thanks, Henry. We'll go to board member Sharon now.
Perfect, because I had the question about the fencing as well. Yes, to continue what Henry was saying, it is, out of the elegant solution that you proposed, it was kind of jarring to see that in the renderings, to see the stark kind of drop off of the fencing. And glad to hear that you're looking at options. One of the things I saw, I really looked at what you had, because specifically in the flyovers and in the 3D renderings, it looked almost wall-like. And so I wanted to see what that was, what it was made of. And so thank you for including those details of the wire mesh and of the turnbuckles. A question about that. What's the kind of the spacing with when you have the clips on the wire mesh? What's sort of the spacing of the mesh? Is it roughly equivalent to a chain link fence, or?
I think we're going to have approximately 1-inch openings.
Yeah.
To address your other question, the spacing of the cables is 28 feet where they attach to the deck.
Okay.
And the wall-like appearance in the renderings is an artifact of it's part of the software. It would not appear like that in reality.
Definitely. Yeah. And I've run into that as well. I just thought we should point that out, that it's not a wall-like thing. It will be visually permeable as you're going through. And I think that, Henry did a great job with bringing up the idea of, I like Henry's idea of tapering it down, something like that. A couple other questions. Is there a landscape architect on the design team?
Yes, there is.
I didn't see it on any of the, I think I didn't see it on the disclosure sheet, or are they included in anywhere? Did I miss that?
Her name is Nora Baldwin, and she's also an arborist.
Okay. I was wondering about the arborist too. Okay, great. Cool. I just want reference to the landscape designer on there. Wanted to see if there was someone, so I'm glad to see that there's someone on the team. I wondered because you're getting into talking about the plantings and specific species. So, but glad to see that because the underneath, especially on the Edwards side, underneath the bridge there, and then on the Elliott side with the landing, are kind of sticky wickets to figure out, and also great opportunities. And so having some really good design thinking there is a great opportunity. To go with that, with the question of, I guess this is for city staff now, is there any discussion or with traffic even with the BPAB about addressing how the bike and pedestrian infrastructure interfaces with the existing city infrastructure, street infrastructure that is, and how, if there are potentially any new changes to the streetscape that are going to happen, thinking bike lanes, specifically also lighting for the crosswalk, but just wondering if that's going to be farther down the line, really looking at how this is going to, this bridge itself is going to bleed out into the surrounding communities from a transportation standpoint.
Yes. So we've been working with Transportation Planner Nancy Adams and Deputy Director of Traffic Rob Sprinkle to look at on Edwards on the west side, kind of improving the bike facilities. It is a planned project, and it will occur independently from the overcrossing project. But the improvements are relatively minor compared to this project, and since we still have a couple of years of design to go until we get to construction, and then 2 more years till construction is complete, we have some time to gather funding, contemplate the alternatives, but we are certainly looking at making improvements to Edwards in the form of bike lanes and traffic calming measures to facilitate increased or improve the facilities along Edwards. And then on Elliott, the JC, this is a independent project from the city, but the JC is currently undertaking a pilot program to close a portion of Elliott to, again, facilitate bike and pedestrian movements through the campus. That closure is only being contemplated on further down Elliott, east of the landing. But from what I hear, if the pilot program goes well, they will be considering additional closures along Elliott. So long answer to say yes, we are considering how we can improve bike and pedestrian facilities as they connect to this project.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that those conversations are, being considered and ongoing. The last thing we'd want to do is to have the proverbial bridge to nowhere, and transportation needs to be part of a network rather than standalone. And so, can have the best bridge in the world, but if it doesn't connect, or if it drops you off in an inhospitable point, then it's not going to be used as much. So glad to hear that it's going to be a designed project, and the city's looking at it, and that the JC is looking at it, and with their street closure, it's going to be potentially part of that. So great, thank you for addressing that. That answers my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. And we'll go to questions from Board Member McHugh now. You're muted, John.
I'm not anymore. I'm curious about what happens after this bridge is constructed. Am I understanding correctly, and this is for city staff, that the city bears the responsibility for building the bridge? They're going to pay, the city's going to pay for the construction of the bridge?
That's correct. And the city's secured a number of grant funding sources through the Active Transportation Program, State Transportation Improvement Program, and a number of other funding sources. And we, based on the current construction estimates, we should be funded to begin construction in 2023.
Okay. Once the bridge is built, who is responsible for maintaining the bridge? Caltrans or is the city?
So that hasn't been finalized at this point. We, as we work through the design, one of the conditions to move into the construction phase of the project is to finalize a maintenance agreement. And right now, the city is working, or is negotiating with Caltrans to finalize that, and we're working towards hopefully a shared maintenance agreement.
Typically, when for example, an overpass is built, is that typically the process that's used? That there's some kind of maintenance agreement between Caltrans and, say, the city with respect to the maintenance of that overpass?
Yes, there will be a maintenance agreement. Similar, I think the city holds a maintenance agreement for the current bike and ped overcrossing.
Okay.
South of this crossing. So yes, there will be an established maintenance agreement.
So it'd be reasonable to conclude that one of the reasons, or maybe I'm off base, but correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons that you've chosen this design perhaps is over time, this design is much easier to maintain than a steel truss design. And that the problem being, though, I think some of the comments I heard from the public, it'd be quite difficult to hang art off of this kind of a design, where it would be much easier to hang art off of a steel truss bridge. I'm guessing that's kind of where people are going, and people are advocating for the steel truss think it's better to be able to hang art off of it. Your comments?
To answer your first question, maintenance was considered in the different structure types. And yes, that's true. As previously discussed, the long-term maintenance of this bridge will be less costly than a steel truss type bridge. And I would agree with your other comment that one of the concerns from the public that we have heard is that, or I guess one of the advantages of the truss style bridge is, yes, it provides a larger profile to use as an art surface or as to attach something to for art purposes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that it, John?
That's it.
Thanks. Appreciate you. So I was going, and then I was going through my notes here again. And one thing I think that was brought up by the public that I don't think we talked about here was I wrote it down and now I can't find it. I apologize. Oh, okay. Yeah, I found it. So in terms of existing signage on the freeway, is anything, so there's that, the green signs for the steel lane exit. Is there, would that sign remain in place? Would it be moved, relocated, adjusted in any way, shape, or form as a part of this project or in conjunction with Caltrans?
I'm going to have to defer that one to Stephen or Natalina. I think they'd have a better idea. But before I do that, actually, Stephen messaged me and said he'd like to actually correct the record on the cable spacing. He stated it was 28 feet. In actuality, it'll be 14 feet spacing on those cables. So, Stephen or Natalina, can you speak to the existing signage and the movement of, or will it remain in place or will it be relocated?
Natalie, and I think that's one for you.
Yes. Now, based on the present design, the exit sign, which is, I think, what you're referring to, will stay at its present location.
Cool. Thanks so much. And then one final question. I think you guys kind of addressed this, at least I know how it would have been addressed if I were working on a project like this, when you were looking at the the truss style bridge. You basically reached out to a contractor or to a vendor that supplies that so you could see what it looks like and also cost estimate it, but they didn't quote unquote bid to build a truss style bridge, correct? I think there was a public comment about somebody saying that only one firm has bid on this, and we're not even at the bid process, right? We're not even to bidding, right? Because there are no construction documents. So really all you guys did was solicit assistance from a manufacturer to generate effectively, well, if it was this kind of bridge, it's this wide and it would cost this much money kind of thing. Is that more or less accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. And it was, we went down that path so we could bring the most accurate cost information available to the board and the public during this meeting.
Perfect. Thanks, Grant. Yeah, I mean, this is something that we would do as well, in public or private work, as we're trying to cost estimate a project. We're going to talk to our partners and try to figure out what's the real world cost, so we can kind of sharpen our pencils and figure out the best usage of the project budget. So exactly.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So any other questions from the board at this time? Did anything get stirred while we were asking questions? Okay, so not seeing any other questions, I'd like to go to our comments. And so I'd like to start with, maybe just to mix it up a little bit today, board member Sharon, for your comments. And so I know well, before we do that, Adam, so I know the applicants asked, and Stephen just had that on the screen, but to confirm the alignment, the pylon design, to confirm kind of the overall design concept. And then the last one was about public art. Those are, I think, the big three things.
Yeah, if just to reiterate, yeah, we'd like to receive comments on and confirm the previous direction received from the board from 2019 on the cable stay design. Also receive comments on the landings at Elliott and Edwards Avenue, and then also receive input on the an art installation or the inclusion of art beyond just the structure itself.
Great, cool, thanks. So does that make sense for everybody? Kind of, so there's kind of three things that we need to kind of say yes, yes, no to, more or less, and then kind of rope in your general comments about the project and in addition to that. So we'll go with Adam to so go ahead, Henry.
Sorry, can I get a clarification on how we're supposed to comment on the art solutions, or we didn't see any art examples of art either in the pedestrian way or on signage to and from the bridge, on the bridge, across 101. It's kind of hard for me to make a comment about something that's subjective and I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
May I?
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you. So we were basing our design direction on the direction we received from the DRB previously to consider the bridge itself as the art statement and not add additional separate art elements to it. So that's the way we've been proceeding, and we would appreciate additional direction on this from the DRB.
And if I could just add to Stephen's comment as well, I think it may assist the board in understanding the next steps. I think it was a high level question, which is in essence, would the board like to see art beyond the structure, or would they not like to see art beyond the structure? And if the answer is yes, then what staff will do then is move through the city's public art process, attend or engage the Art and Public Places coordinator and the Art and Public Places committee as well. And we will work through the public art process the city has established through community engagement and probably ultimately an RFP for art proposals and to see how an art installation could be included on the overcrossing. But we would only go through that process if the input from the board was yes, move in that direction.
And I, at least from what I heard from both Stephen and Grant, it's kind of the way I understood this as well, is I think the design team's looking for direction from us, kind of, I think, with regard to art in kind of one or two or both scenarios, right? Do we want additional art on the bridge structure itself? Yes or no? That's kind of question one, right? Question two is, do we want additional art at the landing zones incorporated with how you approach the bridge, access the bridge, and engage the bridge? I think that's kind of the second one. And then the third piece of the art is it no art at all, right? Is it just leave the bridge the way it is, leave the landings the way it is, and just move forward? That's at least the way I understood it. And couple that with the public comment we heard about potentially the engagement of Peanuts characters or something like that. To me, that screams potentially dressing up the landings as an option. I don't know. So that's kind of what I was thinking, is it could be one or some combination of those options. And if you disagree with me completely and want to suggest something else, go right ahead.
No, I think that is that would be what you suggested would be very helpful. And I'll just add one other comment that I think we've heard from the community is, as far as how art could appear on the overcrossing itself, would be on the actual bike or walk path as well. So you mentioned the landings and possibly on the structure. It could also be in the walk path itself.
Awesome. So Henry, does that answer your question? Okay. So let's go to Adam to kick it off.
Excellent. Thank you. And first off, thank you, city staff team and project design team. Really great to see this come back. I think this is a really great iteration of what you've brought to us a few years ago. It's been a long road for this project, and I'm glad that road actually. Interesting. We're bridging eras. We're getting into it. This has been a long process, and I'm really glad to see that there is movement on this, and really great to see that there's funding and that there is schedule involved as well. And great work on everyone's part. There's been a ton of work put into this, and I think it really shows in your design. Very supportive of the single stay cabled structure. It's a beautiful design. I think it'll be a really amazing statement for the city of Santa Rosa, for the present and the future of many forms of transportation. Thousands of people drive under it every day. Hopefully, many people will go across it every day, and it can be seen from all around, from the surrounding neighborhoods. And so it's not just for the highway itself, it is for the rest of the city. Bridges are connectors, and one of the things that this opportunity is to reconnect some of the disconnect that has happened to the halves of the city. And I think this is going to be a beautiful statement for that. And I think going with a light contemporary design is a really great direction to go with this. And so definitely supportive of the design as we've as it has been brought to us now. As far as the public art connections, I see. I want to keep the bridge as clean and as light as possible, open, airy, visually and safety wise, and just as a user of this bridge, it will be great to be on this bridge and to be able to see all around you, be floating in space. I've had the opportunity to bike the new Bay Bridge a number of times, and one of the most wonderful things about that is that you are floating out over the bay, and you're floating up in the air. It is open and clear views, and I think having this type of structure that you have is really going to add to that the views of the Santa Rosa Plain. Having any adornment on the bridge itself will detract from the spare lines of what you're proposing, and I think any public art that could be proposed and incorporated. I'm certainly a proponent of public art, and I think that the best opportunities are at the landings and potentially underneath the structures themselves. The approaches, underneath the approaches, and at the landings. I think that any public art that could be incorporated should be contemporary. I think it should be collaboratively, communitively driven. I think that it should be youth driven. I think that you should engage the communities that live around here, around these neighborhoods, engage the JC. So I'm glad to hear mention of the Art and Public Spaces Committee as well. I know that they would be involved, and any of this would be in great hands with them. And I would want to see, art that is contemporary, but also does reference our history here. And we're talking, there are many histories to Santa Rosa. We have got the past, decades. We've got the past century. We've got indigenous communities. There are many histories to be referenced here. And so I want to see a wide lens given to any public art that could be incorporated here. It's a great educational opportunity that can, we can reference our history, but we can also really reference the future as well. What this bridge also represents is an opportunity for the future, with the emphasis on bike and pedestrians. We are this is a generation to have a statement that is less car focused and human scaled, and referencing climate change and all the aspects that we need to be dealing with as a city and as a community. So the bridge is a statement and a utilitarian piece of infrastructure, and it is a great opportunity for many, many things. Let's see. To get to some specific, more specific rather than the larger ideas, the streetscapes, I really want to see the attention being paid to the landing areas and how they really knit into the city's infrastructure and into the city's transportation infrastructure. As Henry mentioned, signage is going to be really key here. we're gonna on this bridge from those places that we're trying to get to, and then when you're on the bridge of where you're going, and also having those connectors to and from the city's existing bike and pedestrian infrastructure safely. As we're emphasizing bikes and pedestrians, we really need to bump the priority for the design to those user groups. How they're going to interact with the streetscapes. Going to the landings themselves, I think that you're specifically on the Edwards side, your update from what you brought us a couple of years ago. This is a great solution. You've created kind of a mini plaza, a mini nook that will serve as a way to slow people down. When you have these bridges, and especially when you're on bikes, you can build up a pretty good head of steam coming down a safe area that is a landing spot. If you have those, what you previously proposed with multiple outlets, there's not much need to slow down necessarily, and you're going out into the parking lot or into the street or on the sidewalk. One of the commenters brought up the idea of the curb cuts being too small. I think that this is one way that you could really bump up the emphasis on that this is for bikers and pedestrians. Large curb cuts, lights, I think in pavement lighting is going to be key to announce this as that there are going to be people walking here, biking here. There's going to be parents of strollers. When my son is 7 years old now, but when he was in preschool, I live in the JC neighborhood, and his preschool was over on the other side of Coddington, and I biked, much to his mother's chagrin, underneath the steel lane. Over there was a hairy proposition. This would be a great thing for families and kids to use. My son, as a 7-year-old now, would love to bike on this bridge because he could build up that head of steam. He loved biking on the Bay Bridge when we did that. So yet another opportunity there. Let's see. I think that in terms of safety, your width of your bridge is great. On the JC side, I really think engaging with the JC community to really see their needs and to fit into all the new things that are going on over there, specifically in this part of campus too, is really going to be key. So this is one of those moments in the project to be really nimble and working with them as well. I think key areas of communication open. I just wanted also to highlight, the one last comment, one of the public comments saying that this bridge should not just be as a way to communicate to drivers. This should be a way to communicate to the city and to everyone on the neighborhoods and to all users. And very supportive of the project as proposed. I think I hit all of the questions that I was supposed to. Correct, Drew? I get the 3.
I think so, yeah.
A whole bunch of other things too. Great.
Yeah, a whole bunch of other things, and the three big ticket items there.
The 3 main ones. Okay, and that will do it. Thanks very much for bringing this to us again, and I look forward to seeing this.
Thanks, Grant. You had something?
Yes, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Board Member Sharon's comments about art made me realize that I failed to mention something that if we go through the city's public art process, if we were to go and install art at the landings, which is outside of the state right of way, it's likely that we could deliver an art installation, concurrently with the project delivery timeline. If an art installation is proposed on the main structure and within the state right of way, it's likely Caltrans would need to be involved, which could potentially lead to delays in delivering the art structure, or excuse me, the art installation, which could potentially be installed after the completion of construction. However, I would imagine that it would be everyone would like to see it all installed at one time. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that there may be some delays if we were to install within the state right of way.
And that's basically because Caltrans has their own process and they move at their own speed, and so it is what it is, kind of, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it's kind of the way it is.
And the city does have a pretty good, or has a very good public outreach process. Caltrans process, however, is much more robust, requiring multiple public outreach events, records of that, full submittal or full proposal upon submittal for application, which takes quite a bit of time to be accepted as well. So,
and I think that's another argument in favor for me of keeping any potential artwork to the city size of things and to the landings and underneath the structures.
So let's go to board member Wolski now for her comments.
Thanks. So I'm super excited about this. I've been reading about this project in the paper forever, and to have a dedicated way for people to go from east to west, back and forth to places where I think a lot of people would really like to go. I think so that's one of them. What is the alignment? I really like that, and I think it makes sense. The other thing is I wanted to thank staff for pursuing and being awarded these very significant financial grants to speed along this process and to help with the funding. Super important. Let's see. For the design, I really like this offset pylon. I think the pylon, the way it curves, is just really pleasing to the eye, very aesthetically pleasing. And I do think it's really light and airy, visible and safe, which I think would encourage more people to use this overcrossing. And let's see. The landings, I'm really happy with the revised landings that I saw that have been changed since I think it was 2018 meeting. I think they're a lot safer. No one's shooting out into where people are exiting from a parking lot. I do like, it was the base material, but I think the Edwards Avenue one that was the fractured rib material, very much like that material. I think it adds a lot of texture and something about it I just really like. So I appreciate that being added. Let's see. I'm wondering how signage or directions will be handled in a good way for the Elliott Avenue touchdown. That seemed like there were a lot of arrows going on, and maybe it will be meted out with the curb cuts and things like that. And I was happy to hear that the JC isn't planning on having any traffic in that area. I think that will make it a lot safer. And public art, I absolutely agree with board member Sharon. I don't see having any art affixed to this bridge. If anything, I can see it possibly in the landing areas, maybe even incorporated into the wall. This is a very clean design, so I don't think it needs much to be added to it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. Appreciate you. We're going to go to board member Wicks now for his comments.
Thank you, Chairman Weigel. Thank you, Mr. Grover, and your design team. I think you did an outstanding job. I think you hit a home run, particularly in regards to our request for you to push the design envelope and treat the bridge as artwork. I think you brought back a masterful solution. I would commend you on that. I think there's enough transparency in it to see the true beauty of the hillside, especially northbound, looking at the Shiloh Mountains and it's a strong statement. It's transparent, but it's strong and it's artful in its nature. I think it will be beautiful for the motorists to travel by it. I think it will even perhaps capture enough attention to where somebody might want to come around, take the exit, come back and take a second look at it. maybe walk across it. So from that aspect, I think there's an opportunity for the public art, if that's a strong statement from the public and they want it at the landing elements of it. I could see that. I appreciate the simplicity and the beauty as it was presented to us tonight. I wish we'd seen some alternative designs to artwork in those areas, or maybe in the pathway of the bridge. But I'm struggling to constructively give any comment about public art and adding to it beyond what we've seen tonight, because I think the bridge as it stands is the public art that is being added to the city of Santa Rosa. I love the non-glare, some specific things I think you hit real well on. I love the non-glare lighting, both under, particularly as you go across the bridge. I know walking along the waterfront in San Francisco and how they've changed some of the lighting, and it's low level, keeps you safe and keeps you from stumbling as you're walking, but keeps you being able to see the distant views of the Bay Bridge. I like the subtle separation from the walk and the bike path. Very, very, very nifty. The landscaping selections I like the meandering sidewalk. I think it adds a bigger buffering landscape zone to the street. I love that meandering. It's a subtle difference, but it's just so much better than a straight line. The architectural character. I would love to see you just stretch on the design of bringing down that 10-foot high missile railing, anti-missile barrier, and just bringing it down to what I call zero, which is really the 42-inch guardrail. So did I hit on all three, Drew?
You did. All right. Any other general comments, Henry? Or
no? I think I'm good. It's hard to not go on and on about how much I like it. But I looking back at the 2010 solution, which had the bridgeway, the winning, I guess it was the winning design in the charrette. It didn't even have artwork on it. It had Old Redwood Highway and script across it, which kind of remind me of where I grew up in Bakersfield, and Bakersfield Inn had a bridgeway that connected the hotel on the one side of 99th to the other side of 99, and it was arched, and that was its kind of artful look, but it just said Bakersfield across it. And this the one in the design compass charrette from 2010 had Old Redwood Highway, or not old, just had Redwood Highway on it, which to me, it's not really art. And I think the solution before us tonight is more of an art piece. And I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Henry. John, your board member McHugh, your comments?
Thank you. I absolutely love the design, and I like its simplicity. I like its elegance. I like the landings, the way the landings have been designed, and I appreciate the time and thought that you put into your design. I don't particularly want any additional art on the bridge simply because I think that would be a distraction. It's a piece of art in and of itself, and therefore I just like to leave it the way it is. And so that would be my preference. Now, did I hit on all three that I needed to hit on?
You did, John. Perfect.
Thank you. I'm done.
So thanks so much. I mean, I could say about the same thing as everybody else has. I think the offset pylon solution is clean. I completely 1000% agree with Henry on the missile proof fencing needs to more elegantly end. But I think I do have a couple comments that I didn't hear from anybody else. I like the I think the Edwards touchdown is fairly well thought out, and the fact that it's connecting to a pedestrian crosswalk, and you're not flying down and running across a drive aisle. I think there's some beauty to that, and but I think the Elliott intersection is just like not at all thought out, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean that there's so many variables that the design team, I think, is still in flux, that they can't land on anything. So I don't necessarily want to see the bridge again. I think the bridge is great. I do want to. I think it'd be nice to see the Elliott landing and landscaping perhaps one more time here at design review, just because there's so much in flux there, and what's happening on the west side is clean, elegant, straightforward, to the point, because there's very much all those pieces of the puzzle are there already, right? Dick's isn't going anywhere. The Patelco or Patlico, whatever it is, the credit union that's right there, it's likely not going anywhere, right? So I would maybe like to see the Elliott landing. I'm sorry. Yeah, one more time, just once the JC settles on what they're working on, and the city settles on potentially closing down Elliott, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that needs a little bit more refinement. But other than the bridge coming all the way down, I think where the bridge ends, we don't need to see the bridge. It's just that landing. And I'm in agreement with everybody else about the art. I don't think we need art on the bridge itself. I do like the prospect of incorporating art into the two landings in some fashion to create a sense of place in those two elements as you cross the bridge. And I was thinking about one thing, but I don't know how, given Grant's comments about the Caltrans element, I don't know how feasible this is, but I thought it was, I don't know, it was a little kitschy, but it could be fun. It's some kind of Peanuts character on the bridge, like utilizing either the bike lane or the pathway somehow, riding a bike like a statue of a Peanuts. I thought that'd be kind of funny and fun and creative and unique. And it's kind of gives you a double take as you're driving by potentially, and folks may take a picture of it when they utilize the bridge. But with the Caltrans element, I think that complicates that pretty significantly. I did have one question that came up, and you guys may not know the answer to this, but in terms of the homelessness component under bridges, and you can just absolutely say you have no idea. So that on the Edwards side, the kind of meandering path with the different varied size planting boxes with rocks and all the other elements, does something like that deter homelessness more than, say, a straight pathway with planting on one side?
That's a good question. I'm going to ask Stephen to chime in here if he knows the answer to that.
I think decent light levels is very important, and a very uneven, unapproachable surface. Large spiky succulents do the trick. We've had other projects where we've had this kind of condition where we have planting areas under the structure, and those have been the kinds of treatments that have been successful over the years.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Can I answer one thing to that, Drew? Also, as somebody who thinks about exterior spaces, landscapes, having that meander. One of the things I like about it, it's efficient to have the straight shot, but the meander, it activates both sides of the bridge underneath, both the shady side and the light side, and so you're bringing people on both sides there. So I think it's kind of a sly design touch as well to bring people everywhere on the site there. So,
by the way,
yeah, I was thinking that as well.
By the way, I think we calculated that it's about 2% longer.
2% longer. All right. Well, there you go. And then I may be the alone in this. I'm not in love with the fractured rib texture. That for some reason to me that screams like underpass in Texas, because I used to live in Texas and there's a lot of big underpasses in Texas with fractured rib concrete. So I'm not in love with it, but that's just my own personal bias. I think if you think it's going to be a deterrent to graffiti and that you can put some creeping vines and stuff on it, then maybe it's not an issue. But that's my own kind of, it just feels really industrial to me, kind of brutal. Not that brutalism isn't an amazing thing, but in this instance, it doesn't match the elegance of the bridge. And so maybe there's another solution, or maybe this is a solution. But let me just go. Okay. Cable stay design, I believe we've all confirmed that. We've all confirmed the design direction for the bridge, the approaches and the landings, and we've provided input on public art, if any. So with that, just one more pass. Anybody have any additional comments on the bridge? Design, landings, plantings, lighting, etc.?
Just one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Drew, you're asking to see the landings again. I mean, is that a possibility for us to see that? And would that add any, would be kind of delays there? I guess that's a question for staff.
I think it's absolutely a possibility. I think that Chair Weigel made a good point that we are still, we've been actively working with the JC, but they are still trying to finalize some of the last details in that landing area as well. So we have been challenged to finalize our side too. So I think when exactly we could come back to the design review board, Natalina and Stephen could probably speak a little bit better too, but I'm thinking maybe in the 60% design. And so then we can incorporate comments at the 90%, but Natalina and or Stephen, feel free to add to that if you'd like.
I would just say probably a little bit earlier in the process. By the time we're at 65, we're pretty much done. I think we'll have to confer Grant to come up with a better idea of exactly.
Okay, that sounds good, Stephen. Thanks. And I guess the only other question is returning to the design review board. Do you think that would delay delivery of the design?
Was that a question for me?
Yeah, or Natalina. I almost feel like we could probably squeeze it in at some point to where getting on the agenda could be concurrent with finalizing that area.
Especially if potentially we kept our discussion very focused to something. We have a tendency to become unfocused. So
that's exactly what I was going to say. As long as we're focused on the areas that we still have, that we're not really done with, that we haven't really fully resolved, and the parts that we feel well done, we can really dig into, then it shouldn't slow down our process.
Yeah, and I'm assuming this is an assumption, but we want to have those comments made for those areas within the city right away, not Caltrans right away, because it'll be much harder to incorporate changes to work that's been done in Caltrans right away and meet the schedule.
I don't think we're talking about having coming back with anything. I think we all understand the challenges with the Caltrans component. I think what we're all talking about is just once you get a certain distance down the road, once the JC has settled on some things, it probably makes a lot of sense just to have a quick touch point with us and just present the landings as they sit, as everything's kind of moved forward, and like not even talk about the bridge kind of thing. Does that feel comfortable to the board? Pretty much just to talk about those pieces. Yeah. And then whether it's 25%, 50%, CDs, wherever it works best for your team, I think will work for us.
Yeah, I think that we should be able to accommodate that.
Henry had another thought.
Yeah, that was where I was originally going to go before Board Member Sharon got my question kind of asked for me, but I just wouldn't want to slow down the process. But I thought I agree with you, Drew, that if it comes back, it's really just focused on that. We're not talking about the bridge again. You know, if by chance we had the railing kind of could peek at that, that'd be fun, but not a requirement. And if there was public art that was being proposed on those landings, just a quickie on that public art, just but I don't think we even really need to chime in on that. We've got an art group on staff at the city that can review that. So just kind of wanted to say I'm in agreement of wanting to see it out of some curiosity. And like you said, Elliot, is of all the graphics, that was the most confusing. And it was like, well, there's too much going on here. Looks like an accident waiting to happen someday. So anyway, that's it.
Cool. Any other comments from the group? Oh, you know what? I did just realize something. We did have a public comment about a traffic intersection or something at Edwards, but I think Grant pretty much addressed that there's something in the works for Edwards. And so it'll really depend on what the traffic engineers come up with, I think, on that side. Does everybody agree with that? I think we got that question answered in terms of safety. And it appears that the crosswalk is proposed. So if a crosswalk's proposed, likely some sort of signaling system would be included in that, I would imagine, given the kind of the potential for flow off the bridge and across the bridge. So I think that's it. Yeah, everybody good? Okay. So typically what we do then is applicant team, we ask if you guys have any other questions or comments for the board based on what you heard from us. If anything was completely infeasible, difficult, or if everything seemed pretty doable in terms of potential design changes or adjustments. Do you guys have any final comments for us or complaints?
I personally don't have any comment or any complaints. I just want to thank the board for taking the time to, really look at this, on a detailed and broad level, and really appreciate all these comments. I think they're all doable, and look forward to working with the JC to finalize that East Landing and bringing it back to you for one final look. Natalina or Stephen, do you guys have anything you want to add?
I would like to thank the board for all their thoughtful comments and attention to detail. It's really appreciated, and it is truly helpful in the design process.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, guys. And it's always great to see a fantastic project that's unique and interesting. And I think we as a board all agree that this is something that is going to be unique and special for Santa Rosa. And it's definitely going to reconnect our city. I pulled up an aerial the other day as I was looking through everything, and I was dumbstruck all of a sudden because I forgot how close everything kind of actually is when you introduce a pedestrian / bike bridge. Because we live in the junior college area, and I went, oh wow, I could just like go down here and walk across and go to Target and then walk home. Wow, that's mind-boggling in a way, because now it's a much more difficult proposition, right? So I think more solutions like this that connect the city and make alternative modes of transportation a priority, I think are going to make Santa Rosa a place to move and be for the future. So that being said, that concludes item 9.1, and we will move to item 10, which is adjournment. And so everybody have a great Friday and the rest of your weekend. And I believe we do not have a DRB meeting on November 18th. Is that correct, Amy?
Correct.
Okay, anything else, Amy?
That's it. And we'll see you in December. Thank you for your comments tonight.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
We're adjourned.